Here we go. Click. And we're live. It is Thursday, March 25th, 2021, 5:01 p.m. 1 year ago at this time, you'll remember, dear friends, that Boris Johnson was near death from the coronavirus. Today, the New York Times reports the following, quote, Britain's rapid rollout of coronavirus vaccines has revived the political fortunes of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, Mr. Johnson's allies hope the stark disparity between Britain's performance and the European Union's will do something perhaps even more challenging, vindicate the larger Brexit project. In other words, Boris Johnson has gone from nearly dying of the coronavirus to living off it. Meanwhile, I have big news for you people. They're back. And you know who I'm talking about. The murder hornets.
Oh, that's a much better. I'm really much happier the murder hornets than back on like a lot of the other things that have been around.
Here we go. They're back. This was on MSNBC.
Could this be the summer of the murder hornet? Environmental agencies say they remain vigilant in trying to eradicate this predator.
Honestly, at least from WSDA's perspective, this is not a species, Asian giant hornet, that we want to tolerate here in the U.S. and certainly not in Washington state.
The giant Asian hornet was first spotted in Washington state last year after they destroyed several beekeepers' colonies. Officials were able to track down one nest and
I did like that.
Say after a long winter, any remaining hornets start to appear very soon.
They're coming back.
At this time in the summer, we think about July into September here. This is when the colony really starts to, increase in size. And then at some point towards the end of summer into early fall, they will make a switch over to kind of an active search for protein to help start rearing the next set of breeding casts.
The WSDA says citizen scientists have been crucial in the fight against the hornet. Many Washington residents have put out traps to catch the hornets and send samples for government testing.
We believe people are most likely to trap a hornet starting in July and through the months of November, and which is why we recommend anybody attempting to do citizen science trapping starts their trapping in July.
The hornets mostly attack bee colonies. Human and animal attacks are rare but can be harmful and even deadly, so use caution if you're going to attempt to set any traps. While the problem in the United States is so far contained to a few areas in Washington, officials say getting rid of the hornets could take a long time. For Inside Edition Digital, I'm Mara Montalbano.
There you go.
But Ben, maybe I have a new calling to move to Washington and start capturing murder hornets.
I don't know. You'd probably rescue them. All right. Now, here I have looked for new news about the saber-tooth anchovies. But, the thing about being a species that has been extinct for millions of years is that the news generates slowly. So I am just going to remind you in this monologue that there used to be giant saber-tooth anchovies roaming the oceans with one large saber tooth that was off-center, okay? Now, I'm going to try to cover in this monologue all the major themes of, the comic relief of In Lieu of Fun over the last year. But I couldn't capture a baby chipmunk today, and I don't have any injured cormorants. So, Kate, did you rescue any baby animals today?
Yes.
Or any injured animals?
Yes. Hold on, it's right here. Hold on. This is a baby unicorn.
It's like a piñata.
It is a piñata that I rescued from the dollar store. Liberated from the dollar store. I thought it was cute.
It is cute. It's very Maggie Feldman Pelt.
I was thinking the same thing. I feel like it should be Nat Set Girl Squads. Like I should send it to her. And it should be like their mascot or something. Also, you could do like some ritual hitting it with a bat, or I don't know, it's too cute for a bat, but it would be cathartic.
Yeah. All right. So that just leaves 3 big themes. Now, one of them is the Lisa Page puppet. Do you have the Lisa Page puppet here? All right. So I am trying to bring the voice of the Lisa Page puppet on right now. Crowdcast is not easily cooperating with that. Oh, there it is. So, Lisa Page puppet, do you have...
You look like Lisa Page puppet today, Lisa Page. Did you do that on purpose?
So
you even have this shirt on.
I know.
Collared shirt, and you've got your
It's
lipstick.
popped.
You did pop it. Okay.
So do you have anything to say to the audience on the 1-year anniversary of In Lieu of Fun?
Well, first, let's be clear that I had about 15 seconds notice of this. So there are no prepared comments. This was Lisa driving like a maniac to make it on time. Because Ben's like, hey, it's a year. Do you want a show? I was like, okay, thanks. What to say to this crowd? I mean, it's just the support and the recognition for the nonsense of the last 3 years, not just, on a collective national level, but for me personally is both felt and like, there have been dark days. There have been some awful, awful, awful moments in the last 3 years for me. And knowing that there are strangers who actually cared was really very meaningful. So thanks all.
Love you, Lisa.
Great to see you, Lisa. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Glad you drove safely.
You're never that far away, Lisa.
I did tell you that we do it anytime. It didn't have to be at the top of the hour.
Well,
it's good to see you.
But you said it was scripted and planned.
It was scripted.
And
I'm so impressed by this scripting.
All right. I'm going to let Lisa go and finish up the important monologue because there's 2 more big themes. I know what you've all been asking, and I'm going to answer your question. I really am. You're all asking why, if we've been on the air 364 days in the last year, missing only that one episode where the power went out at the cabin in the woods, why is this episode 363?
No one's really asking that, Ben.
I think everyone's asking that. And the answer is a numbering error somewhere along the way, we're not perfect, dude. So, all right. Finally, the last issue we got to discuss is alcohol. This show started with the idea that Kate and I would have a drink together every day at 5 o'clock. So it seems to me that drink today has to be pink champagne. I sent a bottle to Kate this morning in New York. I have a bottle here, which I'm going to open now. Pardon me a second while I, open the bottle. I've never opened a bottle of champagne on live before. I'm a little bit nervous about, the whole, could it go bad?
Wait,
didn't
you
pop.
You popped it already? You didn't even give it, you just did.
What?
There. Okay.
So we pour it. And I just want to say that all of this is a very long-winded and not all that coherent way of saying that we're not allowed to have fun anymore. But in lieu of fun, we have been on the air every day, 7 days a week, 364 days a year for a whole goddamn year with murder hornets and saber-tooth anchovies.
Dog shirts.
And dog shirts.
Puppets.
And hats and Lisa Page puppets. So happy birthday,
a lot of other weird
Kate.
stuff. Happy birthday, Ben. This has been very lovely.
Now, before we go on, I want to say that I received today the strangest present that has ever been delivered to my door.
Do you want to know why it's strange?
Because you sent it.
Yes.
So some of it was normal. There was a happy birthday balloon. There was a cake. Then some of it was a little odd. There were oysters. There was blueberries. There was a giant blood orange. And there was anchovies. So I'm really having trouble interpreting it all.
Okay.
So Kate, why don't you walk us through it?
Okay. Well, I think that you have to think about the box as your seder plate, Ben. And we have to have a little discussion of why we eat each thing. Well, first of all, I have to get. So it's actually really funny. I wasn't going to do this, but then I didn't send you this, so I have it and you don't have it because I didn't think of it ahead of time. I thought of it and thought it's a strange box because I thought of it and the theme for it and the writing of a Haggadah, anyway, whatever.
Haggadah.
Okay, all
Or
in 5 minutes.
It depends
before
what
teaching
language you
properties.
say it in, actually.
Okay. So on our seder plate, we have some lamb to remind us of the lamb prosciutto of the last year.
Is that the rest of the lamb prosciutto?
I really probably should not eat this. It's like been sitting
That's awesome that you still have it.
Yeah, I mean, it was an entire leg of lamb, and I don't eat it that often. So that's like kind of what.
I like that it made its way back to New York.
Well, yeah, because nothing can stay in Cape Cod. Well, I guess I could have thrown it out, but that I don't ever do that with food. So anyways, the lamb prosciutto lives on. Okay, then do you have the blueberries there?
I do have the blueberries.
Okay.
Hang on. Blueberries.
On our birthday, we eat the blueberries to remember the sweetness of the Blue Go Live button and how great it is to Kate.
I like blueberries as a symbol of the Blue Go Live button.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you have to get the gushers. But you have to find the blue gushers because I couldn't specifically order blue gushers.
Now, I've never heard of a gusher before.
How have you never heard of gushers? Ben.
Well, I am diabetic.
Oh, okay. Well, then you don't have to eat it. But
I'll symbolically eat it.
You can symbolically eat it. But
do you want me to find a blue gusher?
You want a blue gusher, and the blue gusher is the mercurial nature of the Blue Go Live button as it relates to Ben.
So I should open one of these and find a blue one?
Yeah, because then you bite into it, and they have they like squirt like soury, sweet, liquidy stuff out, and they're kind of like
these blue gushers are all red.
Oh no! Oh wow! See the mercurial nature of the Blue Go Live button.
Should I eat a red one or should I go hunting for
you
blue
should
ones?
no. You should just eat the red one.
All right.
It's not bad, right?
No.
It's like a mushy. It's like a liquidy fruit roll up.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have honey.
Got the honey.
I want to say for a second that this honey, it came from. I came to work today, and the best thing happened. I had a random package from a random person whose name will go unmentioned. But someone had seen I had a cold, and they sent me a jar of their own honey from their own bees. So sweet. So sweet. So thank you so much to Libby who sent this to me. And okay, I went on. We eat the honey to remind us to be nice to bees and to be bad to murder hornets.
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, for those of you in Washington State, Tony Cava, I hope you're like going on a crusade against murder hornets.
Oh yeah.
All right.
And now the blood orange. And the blood orange is to drink the blood of our orange-haired enemies and to cherish their defeat.
You've putting a lot of thought to this.
No, this actually literally was 5 minutes of me scrolling through the departments at Wegmans on Instacart.
I love blood oranges. I think they're the prettiest thing.
I know they are really pretty. Oh, mine's okay. And then the anchovies. You don't have to eat the anchovies because they're stinky.
I love anchovies.
Well, I don't like them.
I've never had one with pink champagne though.
Right. That was also that. And like chasing it with blood orange. Maybe not that great. But
What are we doing with what
they're
the
just
anchovies
reenacting
symbolizes?
this.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
I think I'm going to save the anchovies for later.
that makes sense. But then then finally the toothpick is to symbolize the prick of the vaccine and the end of the plague.
Where do the oysters fit in? And the cake.
To make you happy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And Tammy happy. I'm like a cake. Who doesn't like a cake?
Well, cheers. We've been doing this for a year. Jesus.
I know. It's really weird. It's been like a it has been. I was saying I have an appointment to see an appointment. I have a plan to see a friend today outside. And I was just talking to John about it this morning, and we were just talking about how like it was really lovely and great to be in Cape Cod for so long. It was a safe place. We both could like work. I loved my outdoor desk. It was very idyllic. I had the garden. Once the weather kind of didn't get nice, and after it had been like 9 months away from friends and family, like you had people over to your house and stuff and like could like go on walks with people. Like I just like literally didn't see anybody like except you at 5 o'clock every day. And like, it's kind of, I think that it's one of these things, like it's definitely, I'm definitely have a harder time kind of socializing and stuff. So hi, Hillary.
Hi.
Hello, Hillary.
Hello.
Thank you for the lovely background message.
Thank you. And I brought a special birthday outfit.
Oh my God, I freaking love it. That's
Excellent.
amazing. Are you? Oh my
Oh,
God.
wow.
Wow.
I think we're going to have to get a screenshot of that.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Most definitely.
Let me turn on the blink. Do you like it blinking or not blinking?
Blinking.
Okay.
We're going to grab it. Hang on. We got it.
Okay.
That is so cool.
So happy birthday.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'd have made you guys a cake, but I don't bake. But it's still fun to hang out.
Yeah. It has been so fun to hang out and get to know you.
Yeah, it's been really a lot of fun. My question is now that we're kind of moving out of the pandemic, what are the plans for the show once we are allowed to have fun?
Well, we'll have to change the slogan.
Wait, really? Oh,
I think we should change the name of the show to In Addition to Fun.
Oh, okay.
Like the slogan should become, we're allowed to have fun again, but in addition to fun, we get to talk to Hillary Livingston.
Oh, so it's like would it be like considered a
with her
spin-off?
disco ball boppers on?
It's so they're so great. You kind of look like a very shiny murder hornet because I'm seeing
my friends call these my Elton John glasses.
They're pretty awesome.
They're pretty awesome. I can't believe they light up. I was not expecting that. Yes, I am for them too.
All right.
So the plans for the show are unmade. I mean, we both, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, but we both kind of expect we can't do it every day for the rest of our lives. So we will have to
that's reasonable.
At the point at which we're yeah.
What?
at the point at which we're allowed to have fun again, I think we'll have to figure out like what a reasonable schedule is, whether it's something we're going to do once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, but not every day. And I also think it'd probably be a good idea to get some other hosts involved so that we aren't doing it every day, every time. And so, the whole
if
the
like
whole
Ben
never
gets someone
taking a
really
break
good
thing.
to talk to, and lines them up for a day, and I'm busy, it would be great to have like another person to co-host.
Yeah, I mean, I think figuring out how to do it in a way that's long-term manageable um, uh, is important. But but I don't think I can only speak for myself, but I think the same is true of Kate, that neither of us is particularly interested in dropping it altogether. So, there's a kind of like, what would be the right way to do it over a long time frame? And the other question, which we haven't really talked about at all, is should we institutionalize it somehow, get somebody to put some money in it so we can hire a producer and have people who actually kind of make it happen. There is a kind of fair bit of work that goes on into making sure that we have a guest every day. And and so, like, if we were going to do it for a long period of time non-recreationally, we should probably spend a little bit of time thinking about those things, which so far we have not bothered to do.
But I will say this, that there's also kind of like, I think that like there's an architecture, like ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, or whatever that phrase is that I'm just totally butchered. But the idea was that the everyday structure meant that we often found guests that were friends and that we were super comfortable with at the very last minute. And I think that kind of familiarity was really wonderful, because like I think it came across to everyone. It was something we could share with people besides just like the regular besides the regular kind of idea of just having a really smart person on and asking them questions. And so like kind of I don't know. What do you think, right, Ben? I mean, I think that like we did it every day. And so sometimes we just have a friend on or something that was super. Hey, Ada.
Speaking of friends.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, but it also honestly limits the diversity of the show over time. That we have our universe of friends and the people who we're one phone call away from. I think it's a pretty interesting and diverse crew of people, but there have been issues that have arisen over the last year where the ideal circle of people to talk to about it wouldn't have been people in either Kate or my orbit necessarily. And that's why you do want a kind of like a certain amount of somebody whose day job it is to figure out who should be on the show and book people and find out who's doing interesting work in some so in one area or another. One thing I don't think we will ever want to do is stop the improvisational nature of the show, which people in the chat are confusing with not the produced nature of the show. No part of the first thing on the show ever to be scripted was the monologue I did today, and that was just a few notes to myself. But that's not production. That's scripting and having writers, and that there's no point in doing. We should always be entirely improvisational.
Yeah.
So that's the best answer I can give you. Kate, do you have more thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that seems right. I'd be interested in Ada's thoughts. Hi, Ada.
Hi, I agree. And I've having been on a lot of different podcast type interviews, it's always been best when they're the least planned in a lot of ways. Because when they're planned, people try to cut off the natural flow of human discourse and reroute it back to a preset series of questions, which are often based on assumptions or expectations of where it's going to flow that don't work, which is one of the reasons In Lieu of Fun is an exceptionally fun one beyond, because the conversation goes all over the place and really does flow and is discourse instead of a sort of, I could be answering an email full of questions and it would be the same, which some podcasts are like.
Well, the show you came on the other day is a really good example of that.
Yes, it really was.
I mean, you said 2 minutes before we went live, so what are we going to talk about?
That was actually exactly what happened.
And Kate and I said something like, I don't know, we'll see what happens. And we ended up having a conversation about the history of censorship that there had been no previous discussion of among the three of us in preparation for the show. And
yeah,
that's
also Ada happens to be like wicked smart and just like really good at talking.
Well, I think we have a lot of interests in common. In fact, this morning while I was making the bed, I realized the example that I had been groping for in that episode that I never managed to, of the manner in which our perception of the intentions of the person affects the degree to which we think of a thing as censorship or not.
Oh, and so what was the example?
The late 1990s Warner Brothers English language televised version of the Japanese anime cartoon show Cardcaptor Sakura, which is in turn an adaptation from a thing called Clamp. But to give you the important bit, so this is a Mahou Shoujo series. So we have a girl protagonist who uses powerful magic to defeat monsters, a very strong female central character. And Warner Brothers edited it to cut a lot of the footage of her and rewrite the script to make the male romantic lead friend at school into the protagonist, to make it be about a male central character. And we have notes and emails back and forth among the Warner Bros. Producers that their motive was that they thought it would sell better if it had a male protagonist than a female protagonist. But if those notes and emails back and forth had said instead, I hate this feminism crap, I want there to be a male protagonist, we would feel differently about the degree to which this is censorship versus some other
one
type
was
of
like based on like a market. And like
exactly.
One was a market distinction instead of like an intentional kind of moralistic distinction.
Even though the change made might be identical, but we easily categorize it in censorship if we perceive the motive of the person to have been anti-feminism, whereas we don't quite categorize it as comfortably as being censorship if we perceive that motive differently. So just a very good example of this strange wiggly line that sometimes the same act we judge differently because a different person did it, or we think the motives are different.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if you know this about Ada, but in addition to everything else that she's an expert in, and like being a composer and expert in Renaissance history and a novelist, she also is an expert in anime and manga. I never can remember how to manga. And so, if you need a consultant on that.
One of my favorite specialties within that is quickly summarizing the interesting bit of an anime or manga to somebody who has no intention of reading it but would find the interesting bit interesting.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a specialty. I wish more people would specialize in that with respect to whatever their area of expertise happens to be.
Don't you feel like Linda Greenhouse does this for all of us in the New York Times with the Supreme Court? Like, I think that there's
but I also think the Supreme Court is something where a huge number of people distill.
No, I know.
Like, I mean people who were like, I don't know. We should say hi to Michelle Paradis, former guest on the show. And also, James Heckle has a very uncomfortable question.
So, what has been the most awkward moment on camera for you so far?
It was that time we had Michelle on the show, and it was just embarrassing. We couldn't get rid of him. We had a whole hour to do.
I was going to say it was that time we had James Heckle on the show, and that was really bad. No.
But does the alcohol help with that?
I think we all have. Here's the honest answer to this: we all have guests who we've invited on who have just been, we've had high expectations for, and they've just been terrible. And, and they're never the people you expect.
Yeah, I don't think any of you would be able to guess who Ben and I have thought have been like the worst guests.
Yeah,
like,
some of them are people the audience likes.
Yep.
But what makes somebody a good guest from a host perspective and the audience perspective are related, but not exactly the same thing. And there are a few people who Kate and I have texted the whole way through the show. This person is never coming back.
I don't want to say like that happens often. I think it's happened like 3 times in a year or twice in a year, right?
Yeah.
So there's not like, it's not like that's really, but there's like that for me personally. I frequently, like right now, look up at the clock and see that like all of this time has passed and it's just gone by like that, and it doesn't really feel like it. And then there have just been like 2 interviews that I just am like struggling through the entire thing. So yeah.
But I'm not going to name names on that. Nor am I going.
Names.
We're just going to call the
not allowed to say that. Why would you do that? Yeah, I know.
We're also not going to say call out individual guests for individual awkward moments.
I mean, they were also very kind and like spent their time with us. Well, I would never do that. Like I can say that we had a misalignment in expectations and styles of talking that I did not personally enjoy, and like to a large extent, the
translation of this, if we were subtitling, in Annie Hall style, what Kate is saying versus what she was thinking, the subtitle would read, "I wanted to flog these guests." Anyway, that's
never even used that word.
Exactly. That's the best we're gonna get. You're gonna get, James.
Thank you for coming on.
So Michelle.
Hey, I assume when you said 2 is because I was on twice. And so there were 2 guests who you.
It was you both times.
Yeah.
No, you were interesting both times.
I'll believe you since we're on the air.
For future guests, just so that you know, one thing that is important to do is to sometimes stop talking, because if you answer the first question in a 45-minute stream of consciousness and you make the hosts interrupt you, that is uncomfortable for me because I'm
want to interrupt a person.
I'm just not the biggest interrupter in the world, but
I'm even worse than Ben.
It's like Kate's too nice for that. She's not going to say, "Dude, shut up and let me ask the next question."
I'll just text it to Ben.
What do we do about this asshole?
No, but I mean, I do really. I think that we've just been insanely lucky. I want to say that like that is a type of uncomfortableness that's like a little bit like, and I think is kind of, it speaks to kind of how impromptu this show is, that like it's a lot like being stuck next to someone at a cocktail party who like kind of like walks up to your group that you're talking with and just like budges into the conversation and dominates it, and like everyone is like, and it's uncomfortable, and you don't like hate the person, but you were having a nice conversation or something, and now you have to walk away and like reform on the other side of the room or something. And I think that there's like, I don't know, it just kind of happens. It's just fine. So
Michelle, you have probably been on the show on the 2 least related subjects.
Oh yeah.
Of anybody. I mean, they're both
okay. Both World War II.
I mean, maybe Ada, in the sense that from science fiction to Renaissance history is a pretty big is a pretty big gap.
Did we have Josh Marshall on twice to talk about woodworking and then to also talk about politics, or maybe just once? Anyway, maybe he was just woodworking. No, you're right.
Yeah, so but yours are pretty. They're both history.
Well, history, yeah.
They're both sort of World War II history. But
did you see that Annette Gordon-Reed photo that I sent you, Michelle?
I did.
Eisenhower's parent.
Yeah, that was lovely. It got me. It sent me down a rabbit hole studying his mother for a while. I had done some work on his mother, but yeah, I saw that and I got.
She looks so much like him.
Yeah, isn't it amazing?
Yeah. So sorry, just to read everyone in, I said as Annette Gordon-Reed, who's a historian, put a picture up, a portrait up of a picture of Dwight Eisenhower's parents. And the picture is stunning, and that the mother looks so much like Eisenhower, but also is like there's like a question about race. And so
yeah, isn't that brilliant? Yeah.
So it was kind of a fascinating thing, and it's led to a lot of kind of conversation, I guess, about his identity, and whether or not there was a lot of kind of like social pressure at the time to hide things. And so anyways, it was just, I didn't know any of that, and it was fascinating. And so I thought that it was a really great. So I'm glad you hadn't seen that. It was so
no,
good.
I hadn't seen. I actually don't think I'd ever seen his mother, and so I saw that picture, and I had the same immediate impulse. I was like, "What is her ethnic background? Like she,
Right.
like especially for that era." And
I'm going to post a link to it. I'll find it. Hold on.
yeah, and one of the weird, interesting things about her is she was one of the early and extremely devout followers of what would become the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh,
Had this very like rigorous like religiosity in the home, and was very unhappy when Eisenhower went to the military academy, as you might expect.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
yeah,
dropped it in the. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Oh, I can't. Okay, I dropped the link in the chat if you wanted to look at it and see the tweet. But it's super cool. But anyways, it's so nice to see you.
Yeah, you
Great to see you, Michelle.
You as well, and congratulations on the anniversary.
Thanks. You know that the congratulating people on the length of the pandemic is a little odd, but hey, we take what we can get.
The Decameron came out of the play, and I feel like this is a sort of 2020 version of the Decameron in its own way. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Less body, but thanks. Have a good one.
Katie,
This is ridiculous.
the
Hi.
floor is yours.
Hi. So my question is, what was the most impactful or interesting topic that you guys heard from? If you don't want to name names, just say the topic. But yeah, who was the most interesting conversation?
So I don't know how to answer.
I don't either.
Because so impactful and interesting are very different adjectives, right? Impactful is like what had the biggest, impact, outcome
Externally to
right,
other people versus
whereas,
like on ourselves or something.
Yeah, just sort of like moved us the most. And I suspect those answers are quite different. For me, the one that was just like, holy shit, I really did not expect this, and I learned a shitload, and I'm kind of in awe, was Kate's friend, who's a Wall Street Journal reporter, who came on to talk about content moderation, and we ended up talking about bees the entire time, because he was sitting in front of a beehive with hundreds of thousands of bees swarming around his head, and he showed us incredible videos of
a car full of bees.
A car full of bees, and also how you move a hive
and
by
frame.
capturing the queen. I mean, it was just kind of an incredible, but it wasn't impactful, right? I think in terms of impact on people, I suspect our conversation with Deborah Kopagan was probably the one that a huge number of people listened to and were like, holy shit, this is describing important parts of my life. And but I don't know that. I don't know how to measure impact. But I think those two questions are very different from one another. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah. I'm trying, I feel like I actually have kind of enjoyed getting to know and have iterative conversations with people like Jonathan Rauch, and like the fun in the play with Scott Shapiro, which is very sharp, but is also like, it's a really interesting thing that Scott's doing. And like, whether you want to call it that or whatever, I just lean into it all and like the character of it and like enjoy it. He's an incredibly brilliant legal philosopher, and he's also a funny person, and he is using kind of this new medium of like, not new anymore, but newish medium to kind of like have another kind of like life and another kind of like express another side of himself, and it feels artistic to me and kind of profound. And I know that's like not exactly what you were getting at because it's not directly related to like one interview, but there were so many. I cannot possibly narrow it to one interview. Like Kaylee Swift's interview was just amazing. Like with like the crows, like I loved when we talked to Tortoise Copenhagen with the pottery. I like loved kind of the weird artist week we did for various reasons. I mean, I've loved watching, like, I've learned so much from watching like Ken White come on with Oren Kerr. I don't know. There's just, and then like, I mean, it's just been, there's, yeah, sorry. I can't like, they're just like, so, but that's like the best part about this is like, there's almost never a day that unless I'm really running straight into something else at 6 o'clock that Ben and I don't text and say, great show. Like that was amazing. Like she was amazing. He was amazing. They were amazing. Like, so.
I gotta say, I mean, I would say this even if she weren't here, but the show that made me think, shit, we're really onto something here was the first show we did with Ada.
Yeah.
Which I was frankly unaware of Ada's existence. And Kate said, hey, we should have my friend Ada Palmer on. And this was probably within the first 10 or 15 shows we did.
Yeah.
And,
it was early.
And I was like,
it was like the first moment too, where you'd been like kind of driving like who the guests were going to be. And it was people that we both knew decently well, both of us, or like,
right. And this was the first
really, really well. And I was like, no, I know someone really well. And you had to trust me.
And it was just like, you know, I had no idea who this person was. I mean, she was a University of Chicago historian, so like it wasn't going to be uninteresting. But I really didn't know.
I would argue the opposite.
Well, I mean, and I just found myself completely swept off my feet by
you
that
were. I
conversation.
remember that you were like a very uniquely.
Yeah. And you can see it in the conversation. I was like, you know, okay, let's have I mean, I can still tell you what the conversation was about, you know, the trajectory of it. And it was like from my side, the ability to just bullshit with somebody who really knows a subject. And so I know a little bit about the subject that she knows a lot about. So I can kind of throw ideas out there in a very experimental kind of way. And she can do a kind of virtuosic combination of swatting them back and engaging with them. That is a kind of interview I had never really done before, because I, you know, generally when I have somebody on the Lawfare podcast, I know their work well enough that it's not a casual conversation at all. And so, you know, I'm pretty engaged with, but this was a kind of playful, hey, let's meet somebody you don't know who's really interesting and knows a shitload. And by the way, writes novels about flying cars and commuting over, you know, and let's just see what happens over the course of an hour. And that was really the first moment where I said, wow, this is a really cool format.
Oh, I just remembered Tom Malinowski's also from the statuary room. Like that was insane. That was incredible. Like, I mean, so like, there's just been some really cool experimental stuff that we've done. And like, it's all different in different ways. And even if it's just a moment of hanging out and seeing the chat, it's a good show, right? Like it's just kind of fun to interact with everyone. Also, I have to say that is something that we should have just a moment for, Ben, also is like the guests have come on, and like Radley Belko texted me the other day after he was on, and I had like thanked him, and he was just like, by the way, what is up with your chat? And I was like, what's wrong with the chat? Like usually the chat's so good. And like he was like, no, that's like what I'm saying. Like what? Like I've never seen a community like that on the internet, like or live video. Like he was like, they were saying things like Radley should be a judge and Kate is so great and isn't this a nice thing and thank you for coming and like thanking me for being there. And like I was like, yes, this has been the most amazing positive community. And I don't know that we've done so much curation. I think it has been self-curated in a lot of ways, and the people that have found us. So
yeah, and we rely on the chat to tell us when to kick somebody off. That's actually a pretty interesting.
It's only happened
thing.
a few times.
It's only happened a few times, but the other the other day, somebody was getting close to the line, and I just said to the person, watch the trolling, and he left. So I think there's a pretty interesting,
really interesting content moderation issues,
norm enforcement going on in the chat. So there, how's that for a simple answer to your question?
All right, Katie, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
John Bordeaux. The floor is yours.
Hi, John.
Hello.
John,
friends.
by the way, I think has been an audience member from like almost the first show.
Pretty much, yes.
Look how long my hair is now, John. Hold on.
That has to be a wig. I'm sorry. There's no way your hair is grown that long. No.
It was so short. It was like yours. No, it wasn't quite that short, but it was.
Pretty close, exactly. And by the way, not just because you said norms, but because I noticed that you were ignoring your drinks entirely. Can we just pause and have a toast to you too?
Oh, yes.
I'm enjoying something called Writer's Tears, which I recommend, but Censorship. Fantastic work, folks.
Thank you for being here, John, and thank you for coordinating everything with the merch. It is going to be treasured memento for me for the rest of my life, and I am really grateful for it. So thank you.
Yeah, and we have now incorporated that design as the In Lieu of Fun design on all social media.
Yeah, so it is. Thank you for commissioning that and like everything.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it's wonderful.
There may or may not be an anniversary T-shirt in the works right now being designed as we speak. I can't say for sure, but it's possible.
Understood.
Oh my God, do you remember when you blew up your fucking computer, Ben, with a baby cannon?
Do I remember? The computer's right here underneath the cake. It's
God.
If that was the most expensive day.
A fun episode.
Yeah, I do remember. I'm just actually honestly grateful I didn't get hit by the ricochet.
Me too. You're a little bit more valuable than, like, a little bit less replaceable than the computer.
So what's on your mind, John?
So the question I posed is, on the surface, it may seem just kind of a kitschy, silly thing, but it's really not. And you started to get into it talking about the community that you created. But I will tell you that without firsthand knowledge, I am convinced that you have helped people get through this quarantine pandemic. There are people that are in the chat right now and not maybe that are alone in an apartment that may be 300 square feet, and this is their social life. There's more than one in that situation, and I've been in touch with them, and some I don't know, but I know you've helped people get through this. That's my bottom line with this. So it's not just the community that you've created that's come around you, but you have been a lifeline for hundreds of people. And so my question to you, taking the long view, is your grandchildren will ask you someday, hey, what did you do during the pandemic? And you're like, oh, interesting story. But really,
I wore a dog shirt.
Put yourself forward. Not as much as he did, but putting yourself forward at that moment, because you should always prepare talking to your grandchildren. I don't, and it's a mistake. What would you say in just one sentence? Well, what I did actually was.
Oh, man.
You want to take a crack at that, Kate?
I thought about this a lot, and actually, Ben, I've thought about it while I've been watching A French Village, because I think about how I heard stories about World War II, and I have heard stories about things. And one of the things, I don't know if you remember this conversation that we had at the very beginning of In Lieu of Fun, but I was like, what is this show? Is this show like, I mean, I remember I jokingly said that it was like entertainment for the armed troops, and that it was like, that there was a USO quality to it, but that also it was kind of, I don't know, like an interview show, unscripted, and you kind of thought of it as Johnny Carson. But I think a lot about how I will describe my time in the pandemic, and like mostly I think of how lucky I've been. And like that is basically, I think, what I will tell a lot of my grandkids. I think that's kind of like how it will go. I
You
mean,
were lucky, but what did you do? Because
Do
I
you
think
mean-
you've done something.
I mean, I have a lot.
Do,
I
do you
mean,
mean
lamb
what you've done
prosciutto.
with this, or
Yes.
do you mean what you've done
with
in
this.
general?
I mean with this, and I'm sure you're doing
Oh, like
wonderful.
how
In
would
fact,
I look
I know
back
you're
and describe In Lieu of Fun to? I would say, oh, that's
what
a
it
great
meant.
question.
What it meant. Sorry. Yeah.
I will say that I like created a body of work, like I feel like I like contributed to a body of work that like is a contribution, hopefully, to like kind of to like people getting through this on like a daily basis, and myself getting through it on a daily basis, but also just creating a record of time, like and what this year was at the same time every day for a year in the pandemic, with various amounts of privilege and various amounts of things that you could have, but reacting to the news and reacting to everything, and good days and bad days as anybody has, even when they're lucky. And I think that that's kind of that, and how it's built a community is like basically what I will kind of like I think about In Lieu of Fun as. And I'm not trying to be grandiose about it. It doesn't have to be a huge community, right? I think that like, you know, I don't, you know, but I don't know. The interviews I think have been really important. I think maybe they'll be like important someday in the future, some of them. And like we'll have like, and they sent people out in the world to research things. And like as a teacher, that's something that I kind of feel like there is like an element of public teaching that was going on with that. And then there was also just kind of building like a school or a community or something. Schools like seems limiting, but like kind of just the community of it.
I think I would have a lot of trouble answering this question, John. And the reason is that I think the moment you think of the show from where we sit as building a community is the moment at which you fuck it up.
Yeah.
And
wait,
like,
is that a hit on me?
No. I think, but
Thanks, John.
like when we plan the show,
I'm here for
we
you.
never say what's going to go on in the
Right.
chat. How are we going to bring people together? We never discuss that. We say, who should we have on the show today? What should we talk about? And I think it's a little bit like a college.
Yeah, but does the bricklayer say I'm laying bricks, or does the bricklayer say I'm building a house? Like,
That's
what do
very
you
good.
like?
Very
What
good.
do you like? What is like? What do you like? That's kind of like what I'm trying to say. I
so
get it. There's
I-
an organic component to building a community that makes it seem like we set out to do this, and we definitely did not.
So
But-
yeah, I guess my point is what we set out to do. There was a community building aspect of it, which was that we were both feeling kind of isolated, and we were like, let's have a drink every day with a
It
friend.
had been like a week.
Yeah, it was pretty early on. But you know, Kate was in Cape Cod and I was here. We both hadn't seen anybody, and I had this, you know, argument with John Roush and Corey Shockey.
Corey, we haven't seen her in a while. We should have her back on.
Yeah, we
Anyway.
should have her back. So I think it's like every other community I've ever been a part of. Anytime somebody says, let's build a community, you immediately start arguing about the terms of the community, and it becomes entirely self-referential and silly. But if you say, hey, let's get a bunch of people who want to beat the shit out of each other and do Taekwondo or Aikido together, then you get a bunch of people to do Taekwondo and Aikido, and a community forms around it. And this was like, who wants to spend an hour a day having good conversations with interesting people? And it attracts a group of people that, of course, they have a lot in common because they're the sort of people who would want to do this every day.
So
and so I guess I would say in retrospect, we built that. But if you set out to build it, you're going to fail.
I think that's exactly right. You didn't build a community. You set, in complexity theory, it's called setting an attractor. You set an attractor, like-minded people are interested, and the community built itself around what you were doing. So I'm not saying that you should consider your legacy.
What did,
what's
what did you say? And
yeah.
where does that idea come from? I've
Well,
never heard that before.
The complexity theory. There's attractors and dampeners. So you set attractor behaviors to try to encourage desirable patterns and dampening behaviors to take care of undesirable. But we could talk. But the bottom line is that what you created was an attractor,
Oh, right.
and the
Okay,
community
yeah.
emerged around it. And so you're not responsible for the governing of that. You're responsible for maintaining the attractor.
Yeah, and we've made a point of not governing it, in the sense that the organization of the community has been by the community. And we're aware, but we don't want to like tell people how to organize around this. And so I think there's it's important to have a certain modesty. We can provide the forum. We can provide a text every day. But at the end of the day, the community has to be organic. It can't be something that we're going to, mold like clay,
Never works. Top-down community creating never works. So you did it exactly the right way, however accidentally.
Thank you, John. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you. It's been a minute.
I
just realized we're wearing the same thing then.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned it or something.
Hi, Duck Pants.
It's Mr. Ducks with pants.
Wait,
Hey.
Mr. Ducks with Pants. Have you ever seen this behind me? Oh, I got this at a weird flea market in France.
I do not see it because there is a balloon in front of it, I think.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to get it down. Hold on. This is a weird, I do not know what it is I think it is like preserved or taxidermied baby duckling. They charged me whatever the equivalent in euros is 25 cents for it.
Okay.
Carried it all the way
You got
back.
to steal. I have
Don't
not
mind
seen
me, I'm
such
just
a thing.
shucking an oyster here.
Oh, you shucked oysters. Oh, good.
I collect duckies. I tend to give them out at my birthday parties.
Oh, really?
There's a whole story behind that.
Cool.
My EG Fest, spelled with a PH, wherein I bring other singer-songwriters to come sing my songs to me, which is part of a dastardly plan to get people to actually cover my songs. It's actually worked out pretty well. Somebody released the song back in December as part of their album release. So, and there's another one coming up eventually.
You'll have to play one for us one of these days.
Perhaps.
Or trick someone into playing one of them for us.
That would be the modus operandi. Anyway,
I think we should do it. We should have an In Lieu of Fun music
cover
day
band
where the whole
overdue
day is just In Lieu of Fun people playing music.
Richard and Jack Balkan and Maggie and Ducks
and
with
John
Pants.
Bordeaux and Ducks
And
with
John Bordeaux.
Pants. In fact, they could all do covers of Duck songs.
strangely enough, I did not actually have a duck song.
What's wrong with you? Get on that.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of expectations you would put on such a song. So I've stuck to other animals. I have an octopus song. I have an albatross song. I have a fish song, but I do not have a duck song. So that I think we just have to hold out on. But
so what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, happy anniversary. Happy anniversary in lieu of funners, in loafers. And I was curious of the universe of potential guests that you could have had on, but for some reason managed not to over the course of a year's worth of programs. Which are the ones that you consider the ones that got away? And
As in
perhaps,
that we should have had them and didn't?
yeah, like they were game, but it just never quite worked out. It would have been a great show, and maybe it could someday happen.
Taylor Swift, man.
Yeah.
She agreed to come on
that
as the mystery guest like 6 times, and she never showed up.
Yeah, and we asked Joss Whedon a whole bunch. But this was before his
But then he
giant
sent us
charisma carpenter
he sent
scandal.
us abusive emails
Yeah,
and told us
exactly.
he was going to fire us if we
And
ever
it's
got
like
pregnant.
then it was like
It
one
was
of those moments
terrible.
of like, don't meet your heroes. Don't ever talk
It
to
would
the
have just
author.
been bad jokes about brunch.
Oh yeah, my mom was never gonna come on Robin. Also, though that was like that we had like that was I would say like one of the few conversations that Ben and I have had that has been like substantively like got like making it's like saying no, because I would say that almost all of the time, Ben, the one personality trait that I think Ben and I both have, if you'll allow me, Ben, and maybe you'll disagree, but it's like we kind of both say yes to things as like an initial, which is like, as improv goes, they'll tell you that that's like a very important skill, is to be able to say yes to things and then just go with it. And I was like, no, my mom's not gonna come on the show. It's not that my mom is not a lovely person and really, really wonderful. It's that she's bad at public speaking, doesn't understand tech, and is not completely of a different generation and a different type of personality than me, that I think that it would be really jarring for people, actually. Like, she is very introverted and kind of quiet. And I think that like people would be like,
where did you come from?
like, what? And then he'd meet my dad. And the reason my dad's not going to come on the show is because he would be one of the people that we ask one question to. And then they'd 45 minutes later, where I love my dad. I'm joking, Dad. But yes, that is. So anyways, but that's kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't say that there are that many. I think we've.
Okay, well, how about the happy corollary to the question, which would be, of the guests that you've had, which was the most unexpected get? That person you would never have expected to come on, especially when you started.
I was a little surprised when Kara Swisher said that she'd come on. She's very busy and all over the place, and so I was kind of surprised. But then she seemed like she didn't realize that she'd agreed to do a live television interview for an hour. So
Just kind of walking around her apartment.
I was like, no wonder that you agreed to do this. But that being said, I would say that was kind of that was just like my most unexpected. I don't know. What about you, Ben? I was surprised by Malinowski too. I was really surprised. I was a little
Actually,
surprised.
Malinowski surprised me.
And Preet.
Right after. Now, Preet and I have done a lot of each other's shows. But Malinowski, right after January 6th, that surprised me that he was game for that. And I think it's interesting because it's most members of Congress are looking for mass media in a situation like that, and he was really looking to have a substantive conversation. And so
it was great.
Look, a bunch of the people who people would think are our big gets are actually not hard for us, because they're people who are close to one or the other of us. And but I was, generally speaking, if you want to make news, coming on a show like this is not a good way to do it. You want the highest profile venue you can. And so,
well, that's the other thing about this show, right? It's like you come on this show if you're friends with us, because it's an unscripted, slightly risky live show that you have to trust both Ben and I that we're not going to screw you in some way, or that it's just going to be kind of like a genuine conversation that asks questions. And that's one of the reasons, to be honest, that I have really been like hesitant to let other people have offered, and like the Greek chorus has offered to help find guests, is because like it feels like I don't think that there's quite an appreciation for people that do public speaking. It feels risky, and if they're not already familiar with this and there's not a trust, like it's hard, right? I would say. I don't know.
So look, it'll be interesting as we do more of this over the next, however many months, what the availability of people is as they start going back to their day jobs. One of the things that really we've taken advantage of is that everyone's sitting at home, and if you can email somebody, the likelihood that they're busy every day for the next week at 5 o'clock is pretty remote. And, and you don't need to send a camera crew. You don't need to, right? And so there's a lot of it is the person, if the person's willing in principle to do it, finding a time, given that we do it literally every day, is pretty easy, as it turns out. I think the hardest gets for people like us, ironically, are the people like Kaylee Swift.
That we don't have any we don't have any connection to, and we have to convince them to spend an hour with us.
She's like, or
you?
or the
you're not NPR. You're not
right. Like who the hell? Yeah. Like they're in the who the hell are you department.
You don't think you've developed any sort of cachet at this point? Or?
No, not with people
really.
who are outside the orbit of knowing who we are.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody who
sometimes I think Ben's Twitter followers help. Like I think, or like my status as a professor also helps to get other people in academia. But like otherwise. Yeah.
There have been a few times we've had to, get people to vouch for us that we're not creeps and we're not, like, no, we're not. It's that the show is real. It's not it's not a con.
You have to provide references.
So in the case of Kaylee Swift, I don't think she would have responded if Carl Bergstrom, who was also a Corvid expert who had been on the show, hadn't tweeted at her, I did this show and it was great. It was.
And the only reason that Carl came on the show was it turned out that Carl had started following me because of my content moderation research, which he was also tangentially interested in. So he already knew me, but I didn't know who Carl. I mean, it was like it's weird stuff like that. So it's,
the answer to George
react, for instance. I mean, was she somebody who, when you invited her on, was she kind of surprised that you'd reached out to her?
Who was?
Len, the Scots girl.
Oh, yes.
So that's an interesting.
That's an interesting story. You should tell that. You should tell that. That was a long time happening.
Yeah. So I retweeted a few of her things, and I find the Scots word of the day riveting. And
it's so good.
And I watch it every day. When I miss a few days, I go back and watch them all. And I tweeted at her a few times, and we started DMing on Twitter and developed a kind of friendly back and forth.
Can I tell the part of this that was like about where I came in, about what you texted me?
But there was a moment when I asked her to come on the show when she was a little bit like, who the fuck is this? And I kind of referred her to Kate at that point.
Well, because it wasn't like, and I want this to be like clear that like, I am also a young woman on the internet, no offense to Ben, but like when a random person and you're young and the other person is like, an older, clearly heterosexual male that like is just telling you they think you're brilliant, that there's also usually a subtext there in some way.
Right.
And I'm not like I can vouch for Ben because I know that that's not what is going on, that he genuinely finds her brilliant. But like, I think that there was, also like first, before I did that, I was like, well, I want to know who this person is. So then I had to watch all this stuff and I was like, okay, she's incredible. And then I was like, okay, we're like, and then then there was kind of a discussion. And it's not like, it was just, but she had also she had good reason to be distrustful of people because she had really terrible experiences. And that was also something that ended up being a really good match for me coming in and talking to her about, because like, as young women on the internet and as a studier of this, like that's kind of something that I could talk to her about. So
it varies a lot from person to person. The answer to the George Conway question that people keep posing in the chat is that George and I are friends and have been from early in the Trump administration. And when he first emerged, his first major article was one that I published on Lawfare. And we've been friendly since 2017. And so, for him, It was really just a question of scheduling an appropriate time and the right set of issues to talk about.
Duck with Pants, it was so great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for being here.
We should wrap.
Yeah.
Kate, should we do another year? Well, how about this? Should we do tomorrow?
Yes.
Who's going to be on tomorrow?
I mean, like, what hasn't this always been what it has been? It's always like a decision. It's like, I know we had that fight about marriage where I lost ground, but like, I didn't say I don't think I said one thing about marriage that I feel is also true about like In Lieu of Fun and our friendship, which is that I think that there is something really pure about the act of continuing to show up day after day and just being and like saying yes every day. Like, you don't say yes forever. You don't promise more than you can promise, but you can promise the next day. And so like, I think that has been a lovely thing for this audience to look forward to and for us all to look forward to. Maggie. Oh my God.
Hello, Maggie Caroline.
Hello, my friend.
Are you going to sing us out?
Oh my God, I love it.
We could. I'm reading the chat. Someone said one more day, one day more, and I was like, I have not Les Mis in a really long time, and I don't know.
No, you should sing Happy Birthday.
Okay, but we should all do it
like
together.
Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, we can't because the
mic thing like buffers.
Right.
Doesn't.
Okay.
I mean, the three of us can do it, but you know.
Yeah. Should we pull? I can pull Marilyn up, and we can have her in the background singing with us. Would that add something to it for you, Kate?
Sure.
To add Marilyn Monroe. Okay.
I mean, kind of Grace Kelly and Marilyn Monroe are like weirdly like my iconic like definition.
I'm so into that for you.
A female beauty.
I am intrigued by this and like feel like I need to know more. I will also know. I'm sorry I'm late. The last thing I will say is that your
hair looks incredible.
Thank you. I am singing an aria about federal monetary policy this season.
Damn right you are.
And I was just like, in fact, there are 2 arias on that. And I didn't know that was a thing.
Who knew? We got to rap, which means if you want to sing, you got to start.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear her? Kate, you got to sing too.
Yeah. Okay, I'll sing a little bit.
Punctilious but punctual. Mr. President, Marilyn Monroe.
Come here, Ziva. No dog.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Oh my God, she's so slow.
It truly may be said, here she is. And no one female who has done more.
She's a very slow walker, it turns out. Now she's getting undressed.
Oh yeah, that was right. She like wore nothing. I forgot. It was the 50s, 60s.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you in lieu of fun. Happy birthday to you in lieu of fun.
Nice
Happy birthday to you in lieu of fun and dog shirts. Happy birthday to you. And may we not do this for a second whole ass year.
Thank you, Maggie.
Good point, Maggie. Bye. Thank you, Maggie.
We will be back tomorrow, 22 hours and 45 minutes from now, with May El Sadani at the request of Tony Kava, I believe. And until then, Kate?
We don't have fun anymore, but we do have In Lieu of Fun. Saber-tooth anchovies, dog shirts, and the Lisa Page puppet. I'm sorry I could not acquire
And hats.
And unicorns. And I swear to God, I look ridiculous. Bye, everybody.
Cheerio.